The desert winds howled outside the half-buried outpost as Ethan moved carefully down the metal corridor. He held a pulse torch in one hand and a first aid kit in the other. The signal had come 3 hours ago. It was a distress beacon, old and nearly buried under sand. No response came back when he called on comms. But something told him to keep going. The place looked like it hadn't been touched in years. Dust floated in the air like ash, and the power flickered on backup batteries. Ethan's boots made soft taps on the floor as he followed the blinking red light deeper inside. Then he found the chamber. And inside it, something moved. She wasn't human. That much was clear from the moment his torch lit her face. Her skin was deep blue, glowing slightly under the suit she wore. Her eyes were shut tight, her body standing, still in a glass pod filled with strange green mist. Her hair floated around her shoulders in slow motion like lavender flames. The armor she wore pulsed and twitched, reacting to his presence. Ethan's fingers hovered over the control pad. He knew this might be dangerous, but she looked more like a prisoner than a threat. He entered a few override codes and hit the release. The pod hissed, the mist spilled out. Her eyes snapped open, and they glowed with shock and pain. She collapsed into his arms, heavy and cold. Her breathing was shallow. The armor over her body tightened for a second, like it didn't want to let her go. Then it relaxed just enough for him to carry her out. He brought her into the medbay and laid her on the softest surface he could find. Her breathing was unsteady. Her lips trembled. Her armor was moving again, slowly pulsing over her chest and arms. It didn't look like any tech he'd seen. It looked alive, biological, reactive. Her eyes opened again, this time slower with fear. She tried to speak, but only a soft sound came out. Ethan knelt beside her and opened the medkit. He reached for the scanner. The armor instantly flared and covered her face. She choked, gagging beneath it, and her hands clawed at her throat. "Stop!" Ethan shouted, grabbing the edge of the chest plate. "I'm not hurting you. I'm helping." But the armor didn't understand words. It responded to stress, fear, and movement. He held her wrists, gently lowering them. Her breathing slowed again. The armor retreated just a little, giving her face back. Ethan scanned her body. No fatal injuries, but she was weak from stasis. And something in the armor was draining her, feeding on her energy like a parasite. He whispered calmly to her, not knowing if she understood. "I need to take it off. It's killing you. Do you understand?" She looked at him, her eyes wide and wet, and nodded once. He reached slowly toward her chest. The armor tensed as if ready to bite. He didn't flinch. His fingers touched the edge of the seal, and he felt heat and pressure like pushing against a heartbeat. The armor rippled, but didn't attack. It was confused, unsure. He pressed forward. The black material crawled around his fingers, almost like vines. It tightened again, just as her breath hitched. She gritted her teeth and shook her head. "It won't." "Let me go," she whispered finally. Her voice was broken, but beautiful, like it hadn't been used in years. Ethan didn't back away. "Then I'll convince it," he said firmly. "Just hold on." He began searching for any neural link or energy core embedded in the suit. But the armor was seamless, organic, designed to fuse permanently to its host. Removing it would be like peeling off skin. She closed her eyes again, as if trying to sleep through the pain. The pulse of the armor slowed a little as her heart did. Ethan frowned. This suit didn't just protect her. It controlled her. And it was alive enough to fight back. He stared down at her, 1,000 questions flooding his mind. Who made this armor? Why did it refuse to release her? And why did the signal come now after years of silence? The more he looked at her, the more he realized he wasn't dealing with ordinary tech or any known species. He was facing something ancient, something forgotten, something designed not to be removed. Ethan worked quietly through the night, studying her armor with every tool he had. The medical scanner barely made sense of it. The suit wasn't made of metal or plastic. It reacted like muscle. It changed shape when scanned. And it seemed to have its own nervous system. The girl stayed unconscious for hours, her chest rising and falling slowly, but her face was tight with pain. The armor never stopped moving. It pulsed softly under her skin, like it was breathing with her. It moved whenever he moved, as if watching him through her. Ethan poured water into a small container and gently touched it to her lips. At first, the armor covered her mouth again, thinking it was a threat. But when she didn't resist, it eased away, letting her drink. Her lips parted and she sipped weakly, her eyes fluttering open. "You," she whispered, voice hoarse. "Not enemy?" Ethan gave a short nod. "Not enemy. I found your signal. I'm here to help." She stared at him for a long time, as if searching for a lie. Then she whispered her name, Alae, and closed her eyes again. Ethan noted her name in his tablet and continued his examination. Her species wasn't in any records. The armor had no off switch. And when he tried to use his laser scalpel to cut a small test sample, the armor screamed. It didn't make sound, but it vibrated through the air like a shriek. Alae shot awake, grabbing his wrist with surprising strength. "Don't hurt it," she said. "It is alive, it doesn't know you." Ethan gently pulled his arm free. "Then tell it I'm not the enemy." She looked down at her chest, where the armor clung tightly to her skin. "It listens only to pain and memory, not words." That answer made things harder. If it only responded to pain and memory, it meant he had to find what triggered it emotionally, or find a way to confuse it. But he couldn't hurt her just to test it. And it wasn't letting go on its own. "Why is it still on you?" Ethan asked. "If it's hurting you, why hasn't it stopped?" Ala's face changed. "It was a gift," she said quietly. "A sacred armor from my people. Once worn, it bonds with the soul. It sees enemies. It protects. But mine was damaged." Ethan frowned. "Damaged how?" Alae turned her head. "My ship was attacked. I tried to flee. The armor took damage from enemy fire. It broke the control balance. Now it thinks everything is a threat, even me." That made sense. The armor wasn't evil. It was just broken. It clung to her out of fear. And now, it was slowly killing her while trying to save her. Ethan felt anger rise in his chest. Not at her. Not even at the suit. But at whatever made her go through this. Alone, he checked his tools again. He needed to find a way to interrupt the armor's rhythm, break its pattern. A medical stim wouldn't work. The armor would just attack it, but a focused neural pulse? That might scramble its instincts without harming Alae. He told her his plan. "I have a neural disruptor, low intensity. Just enough to confuse the armor for a few seconds. Maybe then it'll loosen up. Let me touch the seal." Alae looked afraid but nodded. "Do it. I trust you, but be fast. It reacts quick." Ethan took a deep breath and activated the device. A blue pulse shimmered through the air. The armor shuddered violently, like a creature in shock. For a second, it loosened around her chest. Just a little. Enough for his fingers to reach under the edge of the seal. The second he touched it, the armor screamed again. But this time, it didn't cover her face. Instead, it swirled tightly around her arms, trying to pull her into a fetal position. She gasped in pain as her body bent. Ethan shouted, "Hold on! Just another second," and pressed deeper. The seal hissed, a small crack opening over her heart. The armor vibrated hard, as if trying to shut again. But Alae reached up her fingers, trembling, and touched Ethan's hand. "Now," she whispered. "Do it now." He yanked the small module from beneath the seam. It came free with a burst of dark steam. The armor flared like a fire, then collapsed flat against her skin. Her body went limp, and for a second he thought she had died. But then, she breathed again, softer, lighter, calmer. Ethan dropped the tool and caught her before she fell. The armor was no longer moving. It was cold, still attached, but no longer fighting him. Alae opened her eyes and looked at him with tears sliding down her blue cheeks. "You broke the fear," she said softly. "It doesn't hurt anymore." Alae sat quietly in the corner of the medbay, her back pressed against the wall. Her breath had evened out, and the armor that once pulsed with aggression now lay still across her body. But it hadn't detached. It clung like second skin, sleeping, waiting. Ethan watched her closely from across the room as he calibrated the neural module he had removed. It was blackened and cracked, its surface webbed with tiny fractures. Some kind of organic processor, fused with alien biotech. No obvious power core, no way to shut it down. He placed it gently inside a containment box and sealed it. He didn't know if it was dead or dormant, but he wasn't taking any chances. Alae's voice was soft when she spoke again. "It remembers what it was. It just doesn't know who I am anymore." Ethan turned toward her. "So it's alive, but not conscious?" She gave a slow nod. "It's like a guardian beast. It feels fear, pain, memory, but not logic. When it bonded with me, it knew me as friend. When damaged, it forgot." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. "And now?" She looked down at the armor covering her arms. "Now it's sleeping. For the first time in years." Her voice cracked as she spoke, and he realized just how long she had suffered in silence. He walked over and offered her a warm nutrient pack. She hesitated, then took it with trembling fingers. "Thank you," she said. No one else tried. The others, they ran when it reacted. Ethan sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance. They didn't understand it. Or you. But I do now. The room went quiet again, filled only with the soft humming of backup systems and the desert winds outside. Alae stared at the floor for a moment before speaking. "This outpost, it wasn't mine. I crashed near here during the storm. I came here seeking shelter, but the system locked down. I was trapped inside." She touched her chest lightly, her hand brushing over the heart-shaped core embedded in the suit. "I sent the beacon before the armor fully took over. It sealed me in stasis to protect me. But it wouldn't let me wake up until it sensed something it could trust." Ethan nodded. "And that something was me?" Alae gave a faint smile. "You didn't panic, you didn't run. You tried to talk first. It sensed calm in you. And maybe that broke its fear." Ethan chuckled softly. "I've been called many things, but not calm." A soft alert blinked on the med console. Ethan stood up and checked it. External sensors had picked up movement in the distance. Several heat signatures, small but fast, were approaching from the dunes. His face hardened. "We've got company. Looks like scavenger drones." Alae stood as well, slower and weaker, but steady on her feet. They followed distress signals, looking for scrap or prey. Ethan powered up the outpost's defense shield and moved to the window. The shimmering horizon revealed several spider-like machines crawling toward them. He grabbed his rifle from the supply shelf and checked the charge. "I'll handle it. Stay inside." But Alae placed her hand on his arm. "I can fight." He looked at her, surprised. "Are you sure? You're still recovering." Her eyes were sharp now, focused. "The armor may be sleeping, but if I move with calm, it will move with me." They exited through the side hatch and took position behind the dunes near the outpost. The wind kicked up dust around them as the drones approached. The machines had long, jagged legs and glowing red optics. Their movements were fast, erratic, scanning the sand for life. Ethan raised his rifle and took the first shot, hitting a drone clean through its lens. It exploded in a burst of sparks. The others reacted quickly, turning toward their position. Alae stepped beside him, her armor rippling slightly. It hadn't flared into defense, but it responded to her focused breath. She extended her arm and let the armor form a long blade-like shape over her forearm. Ethan watched in awe as she leapt forward with perfect precision, slicing through one of the drones mid-air. The armor didn't resist, it flowed with her, fast and smooth like water. Ethan covered her from behind, taking out two more as they closed in. Together they moved like a single unit, silent and deadly. The last drone tried to flee, but Alae moved faster, throwing her bladed arm like a javelin. It struck the drone's core and dropped it in the sand with a hiss. The silence that followed felt heavy but peaceful. Ethan lowered his rifle and looked at her with amazement. You weren't kidding. It really listens to your calm. Alae breathed slowly and nodded. It remembers me. Not as I was, but as I am now. The desert was quiet again, but neither Ethan nor Alae returned to the outpost immediately. They stood among the wreckage of the fallen drones, both breathing, slowly watching the sun dip lower behind the red cliffs. Alae touched her arm, where the armor had retracted back into a smooth black sheen. She looked at Ethan with a question in her eyes. Do you think more will come? She asked. Ethan gave a slow nod. That distress signal we triggered may have alerted scavengers, pirates, or worse. If they scan this place and see energy signatures, they'll assume something valuable is hidden here. Alae knelt beside one of the drones and ran her hand over the broken lens. They're older models, outdated weapons, no central network. Probably just a local scavenger AI patrol. But more dangerous ones could follow. This outpost isn't protected anymore. Ethan walked a few paces away and activated the perimeter scan. The map showed multiple abandoned facilities in the surrounding sectors. We can't stay here. There's an old relay about 40 kilometers north. If we reach it, I can send a secured human signal. Someone will come for us. Alae's face tensed. And what happens when they see me? Your kind, they won't trust me. Not like you did. Ethan looked at her and stepped closer. Then I'll stand between them and you. You're not alone anymore. That answer softened her features. For the first time since she woke up, her body seemed less tense. The armor mirrored her calmness, lying still like silent clothing over her form. She picked up a satchel from the ruined drone and slung it across her shoulder. Then let's move. Before nightfall. This planet isn't kind after dark. They left the outpost and traveled by foot, following dry paths between jagged stone and burnt sand. The sun beat down on them, but Alae moved like she belonged to this world. Ethan followed her pace, watching how the wind curved around her, how her steps left almost no sound. It was like she was part of the terrain. They made camp inside a shallow cave as the sky turned purple with evening. Ethan built a low fire while Alae sat nearby, cross-legged. Silent, the shadows danced over her glowing skin and motionless armor. When this is over, she asked, what will you do with the data you found in my suit? Ethan looked up from the fire and blinked. I wasn't going to use it, he said. I didn't even know there was data. Alae tilted her head. The armor records everything, every battle, every moment. It stores pieces of me, of my memories. Anyone who extracts that core module will see who I am. Ethan's jaw tightened. He realized then the true value of the broken module he had taken. Not just advanced tech, but her entire history. Her pain. Her identity. I won't let anyone touch it without your permission, he said. It's not mine to open, Alae stared at the fire. My people would have killed you by now. Just for holding it. Ethan gave a small smile. Good thing I'm not your people. I'm just the idiot who pulled it out while it was still screaming, she chuckled. And for the first time, it was real. Her laughter was light, almost shy. Ethan smiled wider, the tension breaking between them, but the moment didn't last. The firelight flickered sharply as a sensor in Ethan's wrist beeped. He tapped the interface. Movement. 2 signatures. Fast, not drones this time. Alae stood up immediately. Her armor shimmered over her legs as she walked toward the cave entrance. She narrowed her eyes at the darkness beyond. They followed the drone's trail. Maybe bounty hunters. Maybe. Worse. Ethan grabbed his rifle and moved beside her. Let's not shoot unless they make us. Maybe they're just travelers. But when the figures emerged from the dark, Ethan knew better. One was a reptilian alien with cybernetic arms. The other was a tall insectoid creature with plasma darts strapped to its chest. The reptilian one spoke first. "Human, you carry stolen property and a fugitive. Hand her over and walk away alive." Ethan raised his weapon, but not enough to threaten. "She's under my protection. You want her, you'll have to come through me." The insectoid hissed and lifted its dart launcher. "Then you die first." Before Ethan could fire, Alae stepped forward, her armor snapping into combat form. Long blades formed along her arms. Her voice was low but deadly. "You shouldn't have followed the scent of fear. It's not mine anymore." The reptilian bounty hunter moved first, charging straight at them with a roar that shook the sand around the cave. Ethan didn't wait. He dropped to one knee and fired a focused blast straight at the creature's shoulder joint. The shot didn't kill, but it knocked the beast off balance for a moment. Alae moved faster than he expected. Her armor pulsed to life and wrapped around her legs, boosting her speed as she dodged the insectoid's dark volley. She flipped behind it and slashed across its back, the blade parting its armor like paper. Green liquid splattered the sand. As it hissed in rage, the reptilian rose again and charged at Ethan a second time. Ethan rolled aside just in time, firing another shot that clipped the creature's leg. It stumbled and smashed into a rock. Alae, still focused on her enemy, kept moving with precision. Her armor didn't resist her movements, now it guided them. The insectoid twisted in pain but still fired one last dart toward Alae. Ethan saw it just in time and tackled her out of the way. The dart sliced through the air and exploded harmlessly against the wall. Alae looked up at him, surprised by the sudden impact, her face close to his. "You saved me," she whispered. Ethan gave a crooked smile. "Let's not keep score yet." Then he stood and turned his weapon on the reptilian again. "Back off," he shouted. "Next shot goes through your eye if you don't drop your weapon." The creature hesitated. Its breathing was heavy, and its injuries were slowing it down. It growled in a language Ethan didn't recognize, then spat on the sand and took a step back. "This isn't over," it said. "You're protecting something dangerous. We'll return with more." The insectoid stumbled beside its partner, bleeding from its back. Together, they limped into the night, disappearing into the dunes. Ethan watched until they were gone, then lowered his rifle and let out a deep breath. Alae knelt and touched the sand where the fight had happened. "They knew what I am, or what they think I am. They won't stop now." Ethan helped her to her feet. "Let them come. We're not going to run, but we do need to get to that relay." Before they do, they traveled through the night, moving cautiously across open ground. The sky above shimmered with unfamiliar constellations. Ethan kept scanning for signals while Alae led the way, her armor now acting as a shield from heat and wind. It didn't choke her anymore. It trusted her. Again, as the sun rose, they reached the edge of an old communication station half buried in stone. The relay dish was cracked but salvageable. Ethan climbed the tower and connected his uplink. It took several minutes, but eventually the console pinged, signals working. "Human vessel could reach us in 12 hours if they're close." Alae stood guard at the bottom of the tower, eyes scanning the horizon. "And if they're not?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. He knew the risk. If the hunters returned before help came, they'd be trapped. But he didn't want to worry her more. "Then we survive another day and try again." He climbed down and opened his pack to recharge his gear. Alae sat nearby, quiet. "I remember the first time the armor touched me," she said. I was a child, a chosen heir. It wrapped around me during the rite of passage. Everyone cheered. They thought it meant I was special. Ethan looked at her, surprised. You were royalty? She nodded. In a way. My clan raised me to lead, to protect. But when the war came, I wasn't ready. My ship fled. My people scattered. The armor tried to keep me alive, but it lost itself along the way. Ethan sat beside her. Maybe it didn't lose itself. Maybe it just needed time to remember who you were. Alae smiled faintly. Or maybe it needed you, someone who didn't see me as a weapon, just as a person. He looked at her, and for a long moment, neither of them said anything. The armor glowed gently along her arms, as if responding to the calm between them. Ethan reached out and lightly touched her hand. She didn't pull away. Instead, she turned her palm upward and held his in return. Their peace didn't last long. The scanner beeped again. Multiple signals approaching fast. Ethan stood quickly, reading the data. Not drones, ships, 3 of them, light class. They're not human. Alae stood too, her armor shifting into defense mode. Then we make our last stand here. Together. Ethan crouched behind a rusted satellite dish as the ships broke through the sky like metal hawks. Their engines screamed across the canyons, shaking the dust from old bones buried in the desert. He counted 3 landing flares, all dropping fast into a triangular formation around the relay tower. Alae stood tall just behind him. Her armor had shifted again, this time growing ridged along her back and legs. It knew what was coming. It wasn't just protecting her anymore, it was preparing for war. Ethan glanced at her and whispered, "Still think you're alone?" She looked at him, calm and unshaken. The ships landed with perfect synchronicity. From each one came armored soldiers, different species, same agenda. Their helmets glowed red. They moved in silence, forming a ring around the station. One stepped forward and activated a speaker. "This is property of the Galactic Recovery Unit. Step away from the fugitive or face erasure." Ethan walked out first, weapon holstered but ready. "She's not a fugitive, she's a survivor. You're chasing shadows." The speaker paused. "That armor she wears was classified by her own people as unstable. You cannot control it. Surrender it now." Alae stepped beside him, voice firm. "The armor isn't unstable anymore. It remembers, it knows who I am. I am Alae Vasar, heir to the Sapphire line, and I reject your judgment." A murmur passed through the soldiers. They weren't expecting her to speak. They weren't expecting confidence. One aimed a weapon, the rest followed. Ethan stepped between her and the line of fire. "You shoot her, you shoot me too." For a long breath, no one moved. Then one of the soldiers lowered his weapon slightly. "We were told she was dangerous. But that armor, it's not reacting like we were warned." Another muttered, "She's not lashing out. It's calm." Alae lifted her arm slowly and let the armor part around her wrist, revealing the glowing veins underneath. "This is not a weapon," she said. "It is memory. It is pain made whole. It binds only to those it trusts. And it trusts him." Ethan held up the damaged core module in his hand. "This piece here, it's the broken past, what she was forced to be. But I saw the truth behind it. And I'm not giving her up to anyone who sees her as tech." Suddenly, one of the other ships rose again and hovered above them. A voice, deeper and older, echoed from its speaker. "Then let her prove it." The side of the ship opened, and from it descended a mechanical judge drone. A relic from ancient laws, still used in disputed galactic cases. The drone hovered between the soldiers and the 2 figures. "Combat trial authorized," it said. "If the bearer can control the armor and defend herself without collateral damage, she is no longer classified as a threat. If she fails, she is to be terminated." Alae stepped forward without hesitation. I accept the trial. The soldiers moved back in a circle. A steel floor platform emerged from the sand, activated by the drone's signal. Ethan reached for her arm. You don't have to do this. She gave him a steady look. Yes, I do, for them, for you, for me, the platform hummed. Lights formed a dome around her. From the opposite end, a training golem appeared, massive, fast, and strong. It didn't kill, but it could break bones. It rushed her with zero. Warning, swinging a heavy blade made of energy. Alae dodged gracefully, her armor enhancing each movement like second nature. She deflected the first strike, countered with a twist, and disabled its weapon arm in seconds. The golem readjusted and struck again. She moved calmly, without hate, only control. The final blow came with precision. She flipped over the golem's head, slammed her blade into its spine joint, and deactivated its core. The golem fell, not broken, but outmatched. The dome faded. Silence followed. Then the drone's voice rang out once more. Trial complete. Armor-bonded Alae Vassar is cleared of threat classification. Galactic recovery orders are nullified. All units stand down. The soldiers lowered their weapons and began returning to their ships. One nodded at Ethan respectfully. Another paused before leaving. She's something else, he muttered. Not many could win without rage. As the last ship lifted into the sky, Ethan and Alae stood alone under the brightening sun. The sand was still. The signal tower buzzed with life. Then Ethan's communicator beeped. Rescue ship inbound. Human-class carrier. Ada 12 minutes. Alae stepped beside him, looking at the sky. What happens now? Ethan smiled. You're free. The galaxy knows who you really are. We could go anywhere. Start over. Together. She smiled back, her armor glowing gently along her shoulders. Then I'll go wherever you do. This time not as a weapon, but as someone who chooses. And as the ship descended to meet them, two shadows stood side by side on the sand, no longer haunted by fear, but walking forward as equals.